what if Shadowlands already got, this is from Eugene, what if Shadowlands already got downsized and we're missing actual 9.1 content? What do you think will be 9.2 and what was removed? I think that they probably had pre-production of 9.1 and a little bit of 9.2 worked out, but I actually think that it was so down to the line that they just had to get what they could. For patch 9.1, I think what happened is it was a new zone. It was treated as a patch with a new zone and a new raid. It was treated like an 8.2.
Yeah.
Whereas like its new zone wasn't really that. So that's what makes it weird if you compare it to Legion and compare it to BFA. So I mean that's like a little bit tricky. Yeah, so that's a bit tricky. It's kind of hard to work out really. I think it could be that they pulled some plot elements forward because they knew they had to move on to the next expansion, maybe in an expedited fashion, but they still needed like all of their core story beats to actually happen. So maybe they pulled some things through, and that's why I think we're in a setup where it's kind of like next chapter, the jailer's gone and we can be free. I think. Yeah. As for what's removed, I don't. No, I mean, you could have argued that there could have been some like raid content or, a little bit more beefing out Ardenweald perhaps, because it does feel like the zones of the Shadowlands were a little bit incidental. You just, fix the mana drought, do Nathria. Nathria leads into Sanctum. Sanctum leads into Final Thing. I mean, I don't know, but maybe that's just because the narrative of solving them or helping the mana drought, just, you didn't feel it.
Yeah, it's that funny thing where we're not, because they've, I don't want to say they've cut it really well, but it does seem like the way they've organized it does look like this is the intent. This was the intent, which kind of means they've done a decent job of cutting things down, or maybe they didn't set up enough, or maybe we're just too blinded by being jaded to look at the things that are unfinished because we're used to things not being, not been finished and tied up quite as well historically. So maybe it's some of that, but I think it's just impossible to know. And sadly, yeah. I don't know. It's awkward because with games that aren't big, eternally updating live services, you generally get some sort of post-mortem from someone on Twitter, or even just some kind of, some small tier interview that they never expect will get talked about in any capacity. Almost a little bit like the news of a old PlayStation game by Yasunori, or that was composed by Yasunori Matsuda, being remade. That was leaked on an Irish radio show earlier today, I believe, or yesterday. What? Yeah, so it was just this little Irish radio station had a musician on. I think it was Michael McGlynn's daughter, I think it was, or someone related to that.
Right.
Just kind of brought up a PlayStation remake of a game. And people were immediately able to go, oh, that person who they worked with Procon Studios. That's Yasunori Matsuda. That's Xenogears or Chrono Cross. So that's a Xenogears or Chrono Cross or maybe a Shadow Heart remake, greenlit, that they're working on. We know that. But it was literally just this, like, the chances of someone listening to that and being able to connect all those dots was so minuscule that you can kind of see the same thing. You see the same thing happens in other projects. Where it's like, oh yeah, I'll just give a complete post-mortem, this small interview.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring,
but it doesn't happen.
A little bit of WoW into like Emer Noon from here. She's worked on Warcrafty stuff.
Yeah,
and also I think she's done a bunch of the some like the big video game orchestra things.
Yeah, so it's like that's where you're going to get like post-mortem stuff from your dead projects, because the chances of someone hearing that's kind of slim, but the chances of us actually hearing, oh yeah, here were our full laid out production plans for Shadowlands that we didn't get to do. We're basically, we're only ever going to see that if Activision Blizzard goes bust and we can buy it at the auction, basically. That's what it feels like anyway, which is a shame. We'll not know until then. A shame.
Indeed. Simon M. Do you really think it's lessons learned or the usual Blizzard game? I think lessons beaten in by reality, because they've tried the same shit again and again and again. It hasn't worked. And, from what I understand, there was a little bit of freeing it up and letting the people who are a little bit more in the front line of development actually make a few more calls for 915, and you see it universally go well in terms of the design stuff. So it's like, could be lessons learned. If it isn't, we will hold their feet to the fire because it has to be. There's no more rope left to cling on to. You have to learn the lesson now, or you're just going to fall.
The last fingers on the cliff, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a decent thing. So it's bad shape for them, to be honest, like, but we'll have to see.
Indeed.